I think yesterday. So if you wanted a few minutes to go through them now, I'm happy to do that. What would you like to do? Do you want me to take them page by page? That could work. All right, let's do that. So we'll start on page 7. Anything on page 8? Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Looks in order. Page 12. Page 13. And 14 and 15 should be all in order because they were the ones coming up from the Planning and Regulatory Committee, so they transferred across and there were no changes. Page 16. And note that's got the inclusions around the funding from Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment funding for the facilities. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. And I just note that on page 19, neither the Chief Executive or myself had any advice in regard to a notice of motions in terms of Hampden Street, so that matter remains as set out in the process here. Page 20. 21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24 and 25 and 26 are the moving into confidential business, and then we have got the restatements on page 27. They have been released in 28 and 29. Just so you're aware of what is now in public. All right, in that case, no corrections or additions. Councillor McGurk.
Just a quick question, just on page 22, 21, 22 regarding the City Centre Program Plan, item 10 on the agenda. Have the small committee met and made those recommendations or changes? Has that happened?
Let's look at Ms. Barton.
Through the Mayor, we met yesterday and have made some changes, and I have just circulated that to the two councillors to confirm.
Excellent, thank you. Good progress, thank you very much. All right, in that case, I will move. I'll move and you can second Councillor McGurk. So we'll move and second that the minutes are accepted as a true and correct record. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So that's the minutes attended to, and now we move on to the Mayor's report today. I will speak to the Mayor's report. I won't read it all, but I'll just run us through it since it's come out as a issued after the agenda. There's actually quite a lot to put together. We're going to play on the slides our wonderful collection of photos that we have for citizenship ceremony. I just commenced the Mayor's report by saying yesterday was a fantastic day. We were at the marae most of the day. We had citizenship ceremony at the marae and welcomed people from around the globe again. We have conducted, as I think I say in the report, welcomed over 1,000 people as new citizens in the last 3 years. It is the great, and those of you who you've all been to citizenship ceremonies with me, and thank you for your assistance in those. It is the greatest privilege that I have in the role as Mayor to officiate in citizenship ceremonies, and you all have all had the experience of welcoming people for whom this is the most incredible thing in their life, where they have come on a long journey to arrive in New Zealand. Many of our refugee community follow through to the journey to become citizens, and it really is an absolute privilege to be part of that ceremony. I want to, Steve, will I hand over to welcome you first, and then we'll do the highlights. How would you like to do this? What's your preference? Whatever. So actually, what's on the paper isn't necessarily what happens in the meeting. I think what I might do is I might just, we might just welcome you first, and then you might like to talk to us a little bit about your thoughts and your role. So the microphone is a simple process of, I'm afraid if you just press the button and then you want to talk. But I just want to say to the councillors, it was, again, there are occasions in New City that they are moments in history, and I wasn't here when Bishop Richard was ordained as the bishop. It was before my time, but it was an incredible experience to be part of the service to ordain Bishop Steve, and I was particularly proud that we had an opportunity for the whole community to be part of that occasion, to parade along Trafalgar Street, supported by the Kenyan community, from the Bishop of Nairobi who had travelled, many other people, many of your friends and your colleagues from Christchurch, and to have the Archbishop and other bishops from around New Zealand there to welcome Stephen to our community. We have a very strong relationship with the cathedral, and I'm sure that will continue. As I said, you're welcome at the Trafalgar Centre. We went down for lunch. Bishop Richard always made sure to remind me that if it wasn't for the bishop, I wouldn't be the mayor of a city, or nor would any of the mayors before me. So made that very clear. I'm not sure whether that's an order of hierarchy or not, and I've always said to him, no, well, the mayors of the city actually, in the order of government, they sit even above the MP. And I always make sure I say that in front of the MP too, just to be very clear. So Steve, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to come and see us today, and I'll just hand over to you. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Ko te kupu tuatahi ki te kaihanga, ko era te matanga ki te whakamutunga o ngā mea katea, e rangatira e hui mai nei tēnā koto katoa. Thank you very much, Mayor Rees, for welcoming me. It's been a great privilege to be able to be in Nelson for a month. So I moved from Christchurch, where I've lived for the last 10 years. I come from Kenya originally. I grew up there on a farm. We grew coffee and tea, so I know good coffee. And moved to New Zealand about 10 years ago and settled in Christchurch. We've seen the earthquakes. We've seen the March 15th very tragic events of Christchurch. But now we move to Nelson to take on this new role as Bishop of Nelson. Nelson Diocese is from Greymouth to Kaikoura, the top of the south, so it's quite a large diocese, covers a huge region. but it's a privilege for me to be the Bishop of Nelson, which is extraordinary because, as the Mayor has said, on that occasion, we had a mix of cultures during the ordination. We had the Kenyans dancing on the streets of Nelson. We added a bit of color into your city, and it just reminded me of the beauty of the cultures and diversity. And so I just want to say that I feel very privileged to be serving the city of Nelson in my role as Bishop. I feel very welcome in this place. I've moved with my wife and our teenage daughter who is 16, going to Nenad College, and we're looking forward to being together in this city to be able to build communities of faith and work alongside you in seeking to see communities flourish. And so I think the church and community work very well together to be able to see people's lives changed, people's lives transformed, communities built. And so I look forward to working alongside you and supporting you in any way that I can. One of my dreams is that Nelson City will become a place where people from other cultures feel free and welcome. And I hope that I represent this diversity that you are already, seeing and witnessing, through the citizenship ceremony yesterday. And I hope that somehow I can add something into that mix of what it means to be able to be communities that are flourishing, where people feel welcome, where they add their flavor and culture, and they feel at peace, they feel free to be able to celebrate their own cultures. And so it's a great privilege for me to be able to be here with you today. Thank you for welcome, and I look forward to working alongside you in the coming weeks and months. Now, I know that for many of you, this is perhaps uncertain time because elections are coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you allow me, I'll be happy to pray, and because I think we all need prayer this time, and commit us to God. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Etumatu matua ke atet mai tau langatiratanga. Ke runga kitefenwa ke riteano kitoterangi. Creator of the universe, we offer thanks and praise for this good land, for its trees and pastures, for the beauty of these bays, the wild places and the bush, the mountains, the coast and the sea, for the people who live and work here, including these leaders, and our life together. Give us eyes to see your plan unfolding, courage to follow the truth. I pray that the agenda set today that you give wisdom so that the decisions made will be able to bring justice, peace, and hope for our people. I pray too, as we move towards elections in a couple of weeks, that we will be at peace regardless of the outcome of those elections, and that those leaders who are elected will be the ones that you've chosen to govern our city in the coming season. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Kia ora, Stu. Thank you so much. And we absolutely share the message about unity and diversity, and it's a very strong theme that comes through the work that we do, so we look forward to working with you. Thank you for your prayer. I have to say, that's a beautiful prayer. We've discussed, actually at the start of this training, actually it might have been the one before, about whether we would update our council prayer. I thought that one was pretty good. We might have a follow-up conversation around that, see what we can do. Kia ora. Thank you. On this side, we have the citizenship photos they're running through. And this side, Paul's put together, thank you, Paul, a bit of a graphic about what's been happening at Nelson City Council. And I'll just run through the Mayor's report. I'm very proud of the vision that we developed over the last training. You're Nelson, the smart little city, and I've been watching that resonate. It's really coming to life. Those of you who saw the news around the Cawthron Institute yesterday, the work that they're doing and the agreement that they signed in Japan with our Prime Minister and Mazda to look at their National Algal Research Centre doing work on biofuels. That is world-leading research, absolutely outstanding research. If you attended the Cawthron lecture, Cawthron to me exemplifies actually the message around the smart little city. These are people that have got a huge belief in doing good for the planet and working alongside community organisations, but also business and industry. They're staff has grown from 150 to 300 in the last 10 years. 50% of their staff are women. It's a good thing. They've got gender equity, and 50% of their staff are aged between 25 and 40. So they really represent that organisation that retains, attracts and develops talent. So I think our Smart Little City message is really resonating, and it is being lived by many organisations. We worked through a program of developing the long-term plan, our annual plans. We've had some big regional projects, the Future Development Strategy, working with Tasman District Council. Our Kotaitanga Multi-Tile Regional Conservation Strategy was launched and brought together all of the councils from east to west across the top of the south with Department of Conservation and with iwi. And I'm already seeing that strategy and implementation attracting support, international support for conservation projects. It's operating at a landscape scale that we have not seen before. And we are in the moment working through the Te Taihu intergenerational strategy. It is a business-led strategy. I sit on the steering group with the other two mayors, with business leaders, with our iwi, with community organisations, and it is making really good progress. I hope you've had the opportunity to be out at the workshops and presentations that have been going on over the last few months. We're just bringing together the key themes from that strategy, but the question has been asked, what is it to be a good ancestor? That is the question. What is it to be a good ancestor? And I thought about that's a really good question. If you think about the work that we do here, much of what we do is intergenerational. The decisions that we make, often the outcomes are not seen by the community or enjoyed by the community until our next generation, and that is certainly true of much of our environmental work. So I want to thank you very much as elected members for supporting the direction of our intergenerational work. Some of those decisions are hard to move through because we live, I think, with the tension between immediate results, for what's in it for me answers for our community, but also trying to make decisions that actually leave a legacy and hope and opportunity for those that follow. We have worked on many of our strategies and actions, and I think one that I want to just spend a moment on is our Te Tiriti o Waitangi partnership with the iwi of Te Taihu. I have seen that go from strength to strength over the last 3 years, and I just want to thank all of you for your commitment to that partnership. Yesterday, as I said, the morning was welcoming new citizens. The afternoon was farewelling an uncle, our uncle, Kamatua Andy Joseph, who has served as Nelson City Council for 10 years. It was a very beautiful occasion. For many of us, it's quite an emotional occasion because Matua Andy really is an uncle to us. An uncle is the highest of recognition of somebody that has influenced your life, your community, and created an absolute legacy. We have recognised Matua Andy with an enduring name, Manukura, to reflect the fact that he will always be part of the whānau of Nelson City Council, somebody held in the highest of regard. So it was an absolute joy to be there to thank him for his service. So thank you for those of you who are able to support our uncle. We have been working, of course, very closely with Tasman District Council, and I think our approach of having joint council meetings is it's probably not necessarily unique in New Zealand, but it's probably an unusual process where we come together with all elected members from both councils, usually into this chamber just because it's a little bit bigger, and we alternate who chairs those meetings, whether it's Mayor Richard or myself, and they've been, I think, a very, very effective process for getting collaborative decision making across Nelson and Tasman. To those of you who serve on our joint committees, thank you very much for the work that you've been doing, Councillor Barker and Councillor Walker. I think in fact, if I go around the room, I think pretty much all of you have been in one of those roles, whether it's been for our museum, whether it's the Regional Sewerage Business Unit, I haven't named all of them, whether it has been working on waste minimisation. So thank you very much for that work. We discussed with, at the start, the importance of diversity and unity and diversity, and this year, like the rest of New Zealand and the world, we were challenged with an absolutely devastating 15th of March. And I have spoke recently to Race Unity and Diversity Day at Nelson College. I had an invitation to be their speaker. And I said to them, well, it's 9/11 is the day they have set for that day. And when I went to speak to those wonderful young men, it occurred to me that most of them, or very, very few of them, would have even been born on 9/11. And so really I had to reflect on that to say this is a generation that was such a devastating world event. And I still recall, I spoke to them and said to them, I still recall exactly where I was on 9/11, and I bet you do too. And the absolute horror of having to try and explain to my then, my children who at that stage would have been sort of 10, 11, 12, what was happening on the television screen, and desperately trying to make that go away and say to them, sometimes people do bad things. Sometimes people do bad things. But it was far away, and it affected all of us. But to have a horrific event, as we did in Christchurch, occur right here at home, for many of us, that was the moment of feeling something had been absolutely stolen from us, around providing that sense of security and safety for our tamariki, for our rangatahi. But you know what? Our communities really stepped up. They said, this is not who we are. We will come together. We will gather together. And Whakatū Nelson certainly gathered. We had to delay Race Unity Day, and you all know how important that is to us as a community. But we worked our way through that and said, no, it will need to wait a week, because we had major security concerns at that point. But Nelsonians came out in force to support the message of this is a community of peace. We are peacemakers and peacekeepers, and we will continue to do that. We will continue to look after each other in our communities, and we will continue to celebrate unity and diversity. And I just want to say thank you to the community of Nelson for responding in that way. Citizenship ceremonies, as I said, we've welcomed over 1,100 new citizens, and they are a joyful day. They really are. We have also been doing a lot of infrastructure work. So if we go through some of the stuff that some gets ribbon cutting and openings, and we celebrated certainly some wonderful redevelopments of our cultural assets over the last 3 years. The Trafalgar Centre, the Suta, the School of Music, Green Meadows Centre, which is an outstanding building, and Nelson Airport Terminal, which is just about ready to open in the next few weeks. And then there are some other infrastructure projects that never get the red ribbon on them or the opening ceremony, and I think that needs to change. I have to say, I do think that needs to change, because they're those big pieces of kit. Some of them cost $7 or $9 million, and they are the pieces that go underground. For those of you, the one that still will stick in my mind is watching the major stormwater and flood protection works go into the big chamber that went into Waimea Road. That's one that I will always remember. I'm glad we documented it. It was an incredible event. But certainly in terms of our pump stations for our wastewater network, they are key pieces of infrastructure, and they are there to keep people's homes, their businesses and our environment safe. And I do think we're going to have to think about, whoever becomes the next chair of the infrastructure committee is going to have to think about how we actually do a bit of celebration around those sign-offs when those assets actually go into operation. We have also had a busy time with events, and whether it was our All Blacks Argentina test match, the event that I recall in the previous term where we had some conversations with some of our leaders in the world of rugby about holding a test match in Nelson, and they were sceptical, but there are determined people in this community, and that certainly reflected an event where we came together again with business, community and council and said, actually, we can do this. And what an extraordinary test match that was. Trafalgar Park shone, our community shone, and it was a fabulous event. As with our International Cricket Games, our Adam Chamber Music Festival, and then we transformed Trafalgar Park into a very different event with Bay Dreams Music Festival, and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed that day. One of my favourite bands was playing, and then I listened to some new music as well. It was a day, and I just want to reflect a little bit on that day in terms of there was some anxiety about hosting over 20,000 18 to 24-year-olds and how that was going to go. I can tell you, and those of you who are there, that is a generation of very, very fine young people. They care for each other, they look out for each other. They really have, in my view, a spirit that we need to celebrate, and they certainly had a great time, but boy did they look after each other at that event. Big thanks to all of the emergency services who made that event possible. Without our fire, without our police, without all of our NGOs, St John with Red Cross, it wouldn't be possible, and also the support of the District Health Board, so it was a brilliant event. They are just a few, because we run many throughout the year, including our own summer festival and our Outstanding Arts Festival that we've now gone through the process of transferring to an independent trust. We had a big year, 3 years with environmental programs with Nelson Nature and our Healthy Streams. We've been doing major changes to our infrastructure work to improve environmental outcomes. We have had a busy year with consenting, with our environmental management, and it's one of the areas that I think that maybe our community doesn't understand so well, because it's been a long time since this region had a regional council. We've been 3 unitary councils over the top of the south for decades now, and that means we deliver a very, very large basket of goods and services to our community and have many, many roles. I thoroughly enjoy the regional council roles that we have, and as you know, I sit as on the board of Local Government New Zealand, and I'm there in my role as a deputy chair of the regional sector of local government, and I really enjoy that work. We have seen, at the same time as great environmental gains, we have also had some fairly major environmental challenges, and in 2018 we experienced ex-tropical cyclones descending on our region and showing us the damage of what warming seas can do to our coastline, to intense rainfall events. We deliver emergency management jointly with Tasman District Council, and that is a very positive thing. I want to thank all of the staff at our council who step up without hesitation to serve in the Emergency Operations Centre. They do extraordinary long hours to support our community, and they do it with excellence. Both Mayor Richard and I are acutely aware of the pressure of emergency events of the scale that we've had occurring every year, and while we manage them well, what I can say to you is that it is top of mind for me how we are going to manage these increasing challenges that are coming through climate change over the next decade. The Pigeon Valley fires, I have not seen anything like it, nor have you. It really was a miracle that we did not lose lives, and it was just, I think, at the moment when the Walters Bluff fire started, if we had not had helicopters in the air, I don't know what would have happened, but it would have been a very, very challenging fire to stop. It certainly transformed our community, and it did for a period feel pretty much like a war zone. But what did our community do? Our community immediately stepped up to help. The outpouring of support, whether it was food, whether it was people opening their homes, whether it was turning up to make sandwiches, to deliver meals to the crews that were at the fire front. Every single person in this community helped, and that is a sign of a resilient community. We can feel very proud of our communities, whether they are in the villages of Tasman or the centre of the city of Nelson. We have a lot of fantastic achievements through the year, and I have listed some of them in this report. They are only actually a snapshot of the achievements. There were so many more. I asked the group managers to create a list of what had been happening in their teams. These are really, really long lists, and I read through them, and they tell an incredible story of the work that goes on over a 3-year period. I've attached to the Mayor's report a list. There are a few little, because this was a big list and there's been a little bit on this last few weeks, the team have done a little bit of editing to the document, and they have a few changes that we can go through that we'll table, Robin, I think, just so you've got the record, and it'll be this document that they put into the official record. They're just minor changes, and I just would like to go very briefly through them. Not all of the changes, but certainly in the transport space, we are seeing, I think, probably the biggest transformation that we are going to see over the last 50 years. Transport technology is moving at pace. Our views around transport are changing. I am very pleased that we were able to secure NZTA funding for the Nelson Future Access Study, and for those of you who were at the workshop yesterday, I think the community will begin to understand why this is so critically important. If you looked at today's newspaper, you will have seen a story there around a UN report. It's starting to look at the challenge for countries around climate change and storm surge and coastal erosion, and there's a story sitting in there that features the Rocks Road. It's worth having a read. Now, what I know is that, and you know, is that we were attempting to move forward with the Rocks Road walking and cycling project to go separately to the wider discussion around how do we have a future-proofed arterial system. And what we had is we had NZTA come back to us to say, actually we're going to have to do this together. They need to look very, very carefully at the resilience of Rocks Road. I think that report tells us the story of the challenge that we may have there. So I really encourage you to support the community, help the community understand how important that work is, and really support that study as we go through to options next year. Water supply, we've had a busy time there as well. Lots of work going on in terms of our leak detection work, and that is critically important again in terms of resilience. Wastewater, I've touched on those in the body of the report and how important those pump stations are. Our stormwater system, again, this is an area where with rainfall intensity through climate change, stormwater and flood protection, the next section, are critically important to our community. And we have some big decisions to make in terms of our flood model and the risk that this community is going to be prepared to live with, and actually how we're going to think differently about flooding and designing cities for increased rainfall and storm surge. In the environmental area, there have been some big gains. We have embraced the opportunity to plant trees, and we are pretty good at getting rid of pests. I have to say that 8,000 milestones on pest removal from the ecosystem at Parramatta Flats Reserve and Delaware Bay, that's since 2007. That's only possible through the contribution of volunteers throughout our community, and these are really passionate people. It is through partnership that we will make the gain, and that is the essence and theme of our long-term plan. Warmer, healthier homes, 1,500 homes insulated, and I want to acknowledge the fantastic partnership that we've had with Warmer, Healthier Homes and with ECA and Nelson City Council and other funders and the private sector. We finished the Brook Sanctuary fence, and the gains of the Brook Sanctuary we are really seeing as the halo effect comes into play. We have many more gains featured in here, and I'll leave you to read through that. If we move to the social area, I'm going to come back to the climate change declaration just before I finish my report. But if we move on to social, again, the Suter Art Gallery, we have invested in civic buildings to be buildings that create a sense of place. Whether it is the Suter, whether it is the Nelson Centre of Musical Arts, we haven't been building ordinary buildings. We've been building buildings that tell a story and celebrate the importance of culture in our community. And I would say to you that there is no great city in the world that ignores culture. Culture is critical to your well-being. The library redevelopment will be coming in the next term, and I have a real desire for that building to be a great civic building as well, a place that tells the story of who we are and has a presence, a building that Nelsonians can be truly proud of, and I'm looking forward to seeing that work progress, and I know the Chair of Community Services is absolutely passionate about that project and will shepherd it through. The parks in the social area, of course, we have also launched our City for All Ages, and I just wanted to thank you for embracing that as a community-led project. I think that is really important that we have community leaders engaging, leading, and it is through those partnerships that we will see the gains. In the parks and active recreation space, the Trafalgar Centre was officially opened in April 2017. For those of us who were, it's been a long journey. In fact, it was my right at the start of my first term as mayor that I had to come into this chamber, and we had to decide what we were going to do with the Trafalgar Centre as we were presented with our technical reports that said this building was going to have to be closed. It was an enormously challenging day for all of us sitting at this table, but we had to put public safety first. We were presented with some incredibly challenging numbers in terms of earthquake strengthening and refurbishment of that building. But I absolutely know we made the right decision. We worked through that process, we found a way to bring the costs down, but we also invested in an outstanding northern entrance that is, we're seeing the value of that contribution now. But it was a very challenging situation, and it really does test us out. I always say it's at those moments that actually you test it out as a leader. It's not the moments when things are going well, it's the point where you're facing some really, really big challenges. And I often talk about it's a bit like climbing the mountain, the point where you're the rock climber and the rock that you're not expecting falls from under your foot. Or you can focus on the rock that's falling down and what's happened, or you can work out what your next step is going to be to get to the top of that mountain. And that's what you were faced with then, and you focused on getting to the top of the mountain, and we delivered an outcome for the community. We have signed a MOU with Nelson Mountain Bike Club, and we can just see our mountain biking opportunities really going from strength to strength, and major events now coming. There's much more to talk about in this section, and the Green Meadows Community Centre was officially opened. It was opened later than we were hoping for. We have been, again, this is a bit like climbing the mountain. We had the rock fall from underneath us of having a construction company that did not deliver to the standard that they had been contracted to do. We had some major problems, they admitted that. But I remember at that stage sitting down with Pat and with Gail and saying, right, what next? And we were very clear on what the outcome would be, that Nelsonians would be delivered the building that we had entered into a contract to receive, that we would have a building that was built to the highest quality standard, and we have delivered that. The companies did stay with us, and you will know that many construction companies around New Zealand have gone into liquidation or bankruptcy over this period. It has been a very challenging time in New Zealand for construction firms, but we managed to get that project through, and I really want to take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Laverdis, who day after day sat with that project to make sure that we did have the building delivered to the highest standard. It was incredibly challenging work, but you achieved it, and we are very, very grateful for your commitment to do that work. In the economic area, the Regional Development Agency is now well and truly underway. They have worked on delivering our regional identity, and again, I'm seeing those themes come through time and time again. Our event strategy was adopted. We celebrated our 40th anniversary with Miyazu, our sister city in Japan, and again, the future development strategy with Tasman District Town Council was adopted, and now we are seeing that focus on intensification, and the implementation plan came to us at the last council meeting. The Waimea Dam project, we confirmed our funding, and we funded for to support economic development and regional prosperity. Again, we went through a challenging time deciding what to do with funding for the Waimea Dam, and we needed to look carefully at whether it was a project that we needed for water security. We had many people coming to us saying that we needed to fund it to provide water security for Nelson City Council. But I want to thank Pat, who came back to us just at the right time and had a look at that argument that was being put to us and said, I need to look at that further, and came back through our long-term plan decisions to say, no, I'm comfortable that we can have water security, that we do not need to fund the dam for water security for Nelson, that the package will be one around economic development, and that was what set us at the level of $5 million. There were many people calling on us to fund more on the basis that we needed to do that for Nelson City Council water security. I think you landed at exactly the right position, so thank you, Council. Our city development program is now well underway, and thank you again for signing out the city centre program at the last council meeting. Those 6 key moves, we're going to know those words off by heart, I'm sure, in no time, and so will the community. And again, that is a project about partnering with the community. The feedback that I've been getting from some of our development community, from our business owners in the city has been very positive. They are enjoying the partnership. They are coming to us now with their investment proposal, with their development proposals. They're coming early and sitting down and working with us in partnership, and that was exactly what we were trying to achieve. We have been working on our housing accord. The special housing area legislation is about to come to an end. We have managed in that period of time to provide the potential for an additional 1,500 homes. The last proposal that we considered was the Halifax Street apartments, which included an affordable housing component. I'm pleased to say that they were signed out by Cabinet so that they can be gazetted and that can move forward, so that was a really good step. We no longer have that legislation, so we're going to have to think very carefully as a new council about how we address the issue of housing affordability in Nelson. It is a critical issue, and I think through our changes with the community housing opportunity, we really do have something in front of us now that can grow the supply of housing, and that is really important to Nelsonians. It will be one of many projects, and I know that the relationships we've built with the community housing providers and government and social agencies has been productive in this term and will continue to be so in the next term. In our corporate area, again, there's never ever tying of ribbons or opening events for these ones, but there probably should be, because maintaining and achieving a AA credit rating doesn't happen by accident. You only get one if you have a sound and strategic plan for your city. We have had our AA credit rating confirmed. It is an extremely high credit rating, I think the highest for any council in New Zealand, and it is a stable outlook. That is a good thing for Nelson. It means that our financial plans moving out over the 10-year period are delivering in line with our long-term plan, and they are seen as prudent. We have prepared long-term and annual plans, and we have been a foundation council in the LGNZ Council Mark Excellent program. I think it is important that we continue with that program, and I'd hope that the next council will agree to go through the next round with the Excellence program and see how we go in lifting our grading. I think the grading was a fair grading for that point in time. I think we've gone well and truly exceeded that grading now. I want to say to Pat that, and I've said this quite openly, that when we started this journey 20 months ago, the message was really about empowering this organisation so that the people that work here had the ability to lift performance, because actually that is what everyone has been wanting to do. We are now getting the organisation really in shape. We have the right people in the right roles. We have a very, very positive culture throughout the organisation. I am seeing the best of talent in New Zealand being either attracted or attracted back to work for Nelson City Council, and I just really want to thank Pat for the progress that's been made over those 20 months. It's to achieve 75% of the KPIs in that period is a great achievement, so absolutely well done. And our Customer Care Award, what a team. A fantastic team of people. I get regular feedback from our residents and from our visitors about the experience that they have with our customer services team, and that goes beyond the people that you see in the front of house. It actually goes right through to the organisation, to people who are answering phone calls, who are delivering through email responses, to really being the kind and caring face of Nelson City Council, so thank you so much. You have new quarterly reports and they are working well for you. You have an understanding of how we are tracking at each quarter through all of your committees. You have opportunities to ask detailed questions about the organisation. That's a positive step. And we really have improved our risk, our internal audit and our health and safety reporting. And I want to acknowledge our external members of committees. It's great to have John Murray here today. Huge thank you to John Peters, who chairs the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee, and to Glenys Payne, who is a member of the Planning and Regulatory Committee. All three bring a real wisdom, absolute capability, and do a power of work for Nelson City Council, so thank you very much. On top of that, there are many other committees. There are our forestry committee that Mr Murray chairs, and we are doing good work in the forestry space. There are many other subcommittees that we operate with. So it's a long list, and I wanted to spend some time. Not everything is there, so if there is anything that you feel we've missed, because I know there are things after it was printed that I went, oh, I wanted to add that one and that one and that one, I will come to you to comment. But I just want to go back to the step of declaring a climate emergency at our meeting. We declared a recognition of the overwhelming evidence of the pressure that the globe is under, and that's a global climate emergency. Since that declaration, you have seen the media around the world actually unite in leading understanding of the critical nature of what we are facing. I declared and brought that to you out of a sense of hope, not out of a sense of despair, but it's not until you actually confront the urgency of a matter that you can properly plan to address it. And it's not until you actually address the urgency of an issue that you can lead with conviction for your community to really have a vision and encourage others to step up. And I have to say, in the very, very short space of time since declaring that emergency, which had a message to say, we cannot address this alone. We are going to have to work together as a community, as countries, as global citizens, to really get on top of this major global crisis. The world has changed in that very short space of time. If I had spoken about climate change at the start of this triennium, there would be some of you who understood it as I did, as saying this is important. But over that 3 years, we've moved from, I think, a situation where many people would have said, look, I don't really understand climate change and I don't really think it's an important thing in my life, to now an overwhelming number of our citizens understanding how important this is. The next step is to achieve action, to reduce emissions, to build resilience, to understand what our plan is going to be for adaptation, because we're going to need one, because at 1.5 the world degrees increase, the world doesn't stay the same. We've still got some major challenges in front of us, and certainly when it comes to storm surge, that's something that is facing Nelson. When it comes to drought, when it comes to fire risk, when it comes to intense rainfall events, we are going to see those, and we're going to have to think carefully about how we adapt to those challenges. But I think the most encouraging sign that I have is that we have a youth quake. We have a generation of young people who have said, we are not going to stand on the sidelines. We are going to be here. We are going to be here. We are going to be heard. We are going to be calling you to account, those of you in leadership positions, to really take action, to support action on climate change. And in this city, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Hayley and Cassie's generation, because they really are the leaders, not of the future, the leaders of now. And they will be making their presence felt again on Friday. I support them in what they are doing. I think it is critically important. I now see our business community absolutely coming on board. For many of our businesses in our city, they understand that they need to be acknowledging and acting in relation to climate change, and they understand that it is a positive and good thing. It is good for their employees, it is good for their customers, and it is good for their shareholders. And I was delighted to see Port Nelson take an absolute leadership role on climate change. Nelson Airport Limited is heading in the same direction, and I'm sure that it is a theme that we, as we delivered it into our statements of expectation and the statement of intent for all of our organisations, we will see more and more work happening in relation to climate change. I think that is enough, and I'm now going to open to the floor, and if there are other areas, let's just get some water, that you wish to highlight, it's now your opportunity. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Mayor Rachel. It has been a very interesting 3 years. It's been a pleasure to work with you as Chairman of Governance Committee. I think you're number 7. You're the 7th mayor that I've worked with in this council. And what we've achieved in terms of governance in this last term and the term before has been very noteworthy. It's been very responsible and very effective in improving our governance of those bodies that are owned by the ratepayers and citizens of this city, that we actually govern and manage. I'm talking about the way that we have introduced better service delivery monitoring of those bodies. I'm talking about the NRDA, the SUTA, the Port Company, the Airport Company. I'm talking about NELMAC as well, and it's been good to see that it's been a far more effective way of operating with those bodies, those other bodies that we have, being involved in getting them to know what our intent for them to achieve is, hearing back from them as to how they can achieve it and will they achieve it, and reviewing the services. Internally, it's been great to see the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee step up and do more internal risk management and auditing internally. It's been a great achievement. And all the other little things that have come as the Governance Committee Chair in my role, to see how the things that you've introduced, Mayor Rachel, have been very effective. And I thank you for your trust in me to be Chairman of the Governance Committee, and I have valued the role that we've both played there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barker, and I really want to acknowledge the leadership that you have shown in your role and as Chair of Governance. Every opportunity that has been there to lift council performance, to really look at how we improve what we're doing, you have embraced it, so thank you. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought there might be others, but there you go. It's a big report, we've done a lot. It's interesting how a diverse group of people can make decisions to come to a consensus, and I think it's a good thing to have diverse views around the table. I'm concentrating on the social part of your report, of course. I'll let the other chairs concentrate on their areas, but there are probably three things I would like to look at having been included in it. The first one is the ageing strategy, which was adopted after 4 years' work, so that was quite a big piece of work that Nikki MacDonald and I have been sort of working towards, so I think it's important to have that there. The second one is the community housing decision to divest. I think that's the decision, again, with Nikki MacDonald's direction was and help was a big decision of this triennium. And the third one may have slipped and gone under the radar a little bit, but I think it's rather important, and that is the work that our community partnerships team have done, giving guiding for governance training for community organisations and voluntary organisations. And I think the feedback from the community has been highly valued, the work that we have been involved in doing that. You know that at the beginning of the triennium I wasn't that keen on being chair of this committee. I had another one in mind, but things don't always go your way, do they? And you encouraged me to take up the role. You also encouraged me to not run it the way it had been. And that was the key for me, was that you allowed me some flexibility and a change of direction. That's where the community partnerships area has really come to the fore, and I think that small team of people do a lot of work. And the thing about that team is that they allow others to do things. They're not the ones that particularly are on the hands on the ground, but they connect people and help them to achieve a lot more. So I've been quite proud of that area and the growth in that area and the ability that they have to connect people to make each individual organisation grow more. So there you go. You don't always, not always what you think you're going to get, but I think in the end you make things the best that they can be. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan, and yes, they are. Thank you for highlighting the areas that you have. We had a theme. In fact, it was our how are we going to deliver our long-term plan, and there is a message there about partnership. And Councillor Noonan did come in and she said, "All right, let me have a look at what you've asked me to do." And she said, "This is really important to me." And so the community partnership team is a new team on council, and I absolutely echo your endorsement. It's really, really delivering. So thank you for that, for coming through with a different way of working, and thank you to the staff for embracing that different approach. It's been great. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just quickly cover off the parks and active recreation that you've kindly highlighted there. I remind Council that there wasn't a Sport and Rec committee prior to this term. That was a new committee put in, and I think it was a very wise choice, because I know when that was declared, the phone ran hot from various clubs and organisations, and I thought I'd covered a lot of clubs and organisations through Sport Tasman, but it was certainly they found there was a focal point of the committee focusing on those needs. And often the sport and rec is seen as just sport, but with our reserves it's also for our performing arts, etc., and so forth that we've had on those reserves in our parks and gardens. So I've appreciated the position you put me in there of Chair of Sport and Rec, and I've learned and grown heaps from being a part of that, and I commend the committee who've been extremely supportive throughout our decisions that we've made. And we've made some great gains there. Even the little things like the skate ramp at Tahuna actually have a big impact on the community and the youth, and those little gains. And the other thing was not detailed here is the marina. Well, we made some huge gains there with the marina, and that was an example where we as a committee, as a council, partnered with those stakeholders and a working party to make sure we made some good gains, and that really helped a lot, and we've achieved heaps there with either the boat ramp or the hard stand, and there's still more work to be done there, but I've been impressed, especially that one, at the rate when you combine, rather than working against groups, but combine the groups and have an intermediary group there working with us, things go further, and in that consultative process. But no, thank you for that Sport and Rec committee, and I've found it really good working with Gail and Councillor Noonan with her committee, because they were combined at one stage, but even though they're separate entities, they work well together as well, and I thought we made some great gains in that sense. So I ask that whoever is leader of this council in the following term, that we continue with definitely a sport and rec and a community services, because they're big committees themselves, just like the other committees they are. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner, and yes, they are. There's a huge amount of, they're really busy because they're all about people. And you're right, the phone did run hot, didn't it, after we established that committee? Huge number of people wanting to make connections. And when it comes to our social interactions, whether it is through community organisations or sporting organisations, it's all about bringing people together. It's about teamwork. Councillor McGurk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I suppose I'll speak in terms of the Plan and Regulatory Committee, and it's a committee that covers a very, very broad range of council activities, and one that I've enjoyed co-chairing with you in this last term. And I'm just thinking, reflecting on one of the highlights we've had at this triennium, and I can't mention them all, but a couple that will spring to mind is, I suppose, with the CMARS audit was the one that we got underway under this term, and we signalled at the beginning of the triennium is that our carbon emissions is something that we need to address, and the fact that we've now got an audited, robust benchmark to set us up for the future puts us in a very, very good position for work to do. It emphasises that this is a community council and community-wide response to a significant issue. And we need to work with them. And we have some good models with that. And I'm thinking about the Biodiversity Forum as the work we've done there. We've now gone through our third strategic plan, and that has set us up well for the future of the next 5 years going forward for the Biodiversity Forum. And that's a good model to work to. The Biodiversity Forum has thrown up a couple of challenges for us, and one I think we've addressed is the fresh water. We've increased our monitoring and understanding of our freshwater and groundwater network, and we've worked to improve the ecological health of our waterways throughout the city. But the challenges for the next triennium, I think, is our coastal and marine environment, because what happens on the land ends up in the waterways and out into the coast and out into the marina. So I think the next triennium there will be some significant challenges that we have in terms of our coastal and marine environment, as well as the freshwater. Other things that I've reflected on in this last term is that working with, I think, Councillor Laurie and Councillor Fulton on the regional pest management strategy. That was an immense amount of work we did with our colleagues at the TDC. That is, I'd have to acknowledge the work that the staff had done with that, a lot of the technical work. We've stepped that up quite a bit, and we've recognised that we do have some pests both in the terrestrial and in the water and the marine environment that we are grappling with. The fact that it went through, adopted by both councils without alteration, and went through, and there was no appeals or reviews by the Environment Court, is a testament to the thoroughness of the work done particularly by the officers, and I acknowledge that. The other piece of work that probably is probably appreciated, probably more of those in the industry, is the Joint Land Development Manual project for both TDC. It was a sense of frustration, I think, for people who were in the property development and property industries, that they were dealing with two different and inconsistent standards across both councils. The fact that now we have a joint land development manual with consistent standards across both councils is a boon, and I think it has adopted some of the best practices we have that we've adopted in terms of our traffic management, in terms of environmental outcomes. I think we can probably be very proud of that work. The only other thing that I would like to think is the work with the Kotahi Tangata Te Ao partnership with our councils across the top of the south and the West Coast Regional Council, basically from the Bulla through to the Kaikoura, and our partnership with, joining a partnership with the 8 iwi, as well as Department of Conservation, sets us up well for dealing with the landscape-wide challenges that we have in restoring our natural environment. I'm looking forward to that work continuing, and it's an exciting time to be involved. All in all, I think it's been a very successful triennium for the Planning and Environment Committee. Much has been done. A lot of it has been under the horizon, I guess, but it's important work and there's much to continue. So thank you very much to the Mayor and my council colleagues for your support as we get through this last triennium. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGurk, and certainly I agree it's a very, very diverse area, and looking at the legislation changes that are coming, it's going to continue to be so. So thank you for your diligence and actually keeping on top of all of that. Now, Councillor Walker, and then I will go around.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From a works and infrastructure point of view, I'd just like to recognise how we, from the Fahey storm surge event, how we went and liaised with the residents out at the Glen. Huge impact on the folk out there. Another example of you can't fight nature, you've got to work along it as best you can. And also the Monaco residents, you know, we all felt for how they were affected. And I won't actually forget in a hurry where you interrupted the council meeting on that same day and suggested that those of us who had our cars parked out here might like to go and just check on them. And what a surprise to find that the car park was flooded. Fortunately, my vehicle was okay, but that's what we're, you know, we're okay. So, and the other thing was just a couple of days ago, I facilitated the first meeting at Air New Zealand's regional workshop down at the airport to see what we can do to assist the risk that they face in the same sort of thing. So it's all happening, and I'll address a few other things from the committee shortly, but I'd like to record that those were items that we had to address in a hurry.
Thank you, Councillor Walker, and we will hear a little bit more from you shortly. Now, Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just quickly covering some of the transport matters and the Regional Transport Committee. By far and away, the most important piece of work the Regional Transport Committee has been involved with is the Nelson Future Access Program. Certainly acknowledge the leadership and advocacy work that you put into that project. As we all know, it was absolutely on a knife edge for a while as to whether this absolutely critical piece of work for Nelson that affects so many other decisions that we make around this table was going to be able to progress and get to a point next year where we will actually have some clarity and have some investment ready decisions to be made. That I really can't stress the importance of having that now in the land transport plan and being funded by NZTA. We're starting to see the effort that is going into that project, and there's some big dollars in the study, and that heavy lifting work being done by NZTA and funded as it should be through that fund is a great outcome for Nelson. I'd also like to quickly reflect on the regional land transport plan that we brought forward and highlight the investment made in public transport. And we think of things like the electronic ticketing, which yes, that's been frustrating, and we are unfortunately dancing to the tune of a consortium involved in this, and again we've had a contractor who hasn't exactly delivered what they said they would when they said they would. However, when it does arrive, and fingers crossed March next year, it will be a big jump forward. Also next year is the public transport review, which is the chance that the city has to really look at what is happening in the public transport space and how to design a system and with an operator that really delivers to what the city needs in that space. We also brought forward a plan that had the highest ever spend in cycling infrastructure, and there's been some great projects delivered, most notably at the moment in the work going in Tahunanui. There was also the NZTA-led project around the Haven, and the Saltwater Creek Bridge is a great piece of link in the chain, as it were. Of note, footpath spend has doubled. So we are sealing, either putting new footpath or resealing double the amount that we previously were, and have adopted a design that's a lot more friendly for the users. Our eroding surface quality measures were also met for the council controlled portion of our network. Lastly from me, we do still seem to be really fighting against NZTA budget pressures in Nelson. And it will be a continued challenge for whoever sits around the table next triennium to make sure that Nelson gets its fair share of investment. Some of the optimism that we had in the wording of the GPS has unfortunately not been delivered on in terms of putting the dollars to back up the words from central government, from NZTA. That is something that I hope that the new GPS and new government budgets might be able to address, but is something that the incoming council must have a very close eye on to ensure that Nelson gets its fair share of that budget.
Thank you very much, and I think given the pressures that have been on NZTA, and whether it's been both at a staffing level or at a budgetary level, just want to thank you for the work you've done to absolutely make sure we can make as much progress as possible. It was a very big ask to submit on a whole new government policy statement and work out how we were going to retain the key projects for the region. Thank you, Councillor Rutledge, because I know you did many hours very late at night and very early in the morning, along with the staff who supported you in that, to get that our submissions through and actually get our projects moved up. For many projects in the top of the South Island, they just didn't get there, and we lost funding both in Marlborough and in Tasman, but thank you for the work that you did to hold us in there. Now, Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't today choose to talk and look at the figures, for example, on stormwater or wastewater or anything like that, and match them with our targets and our budgets. I don't think this is the time to do it, but they don't match. But I won't even go there, because there's a much more important matter that I would like to see in the future council become involved in, and that's our community responsibility. The new government has added a new facet now, or passed it back to local government, and that's the well-being factor. And I would like to see a new council concentrate more on the people, and particularly those people at the lower end that are struggling, the less fortunate that we are. You see, we've talked today, and every chair and everybody around here has talked about AA ratings and that sort of thing. There is another rating now, which I think, see, an AA rating is really only finance and debt, isn't it? There is another rating now called, and it's the Council Mark 1-2, covering all social areas. And we've got a BB rating there. And you know, all the categories, as you look along them, are sort of average. So we've got a lot of work to do there, and I think we're letting down our community in this respect. Now, the next council will have an opportunity to improve on that. We've got to give the people a voice. The homeless, face the fact that we do have this issue, face it and deal with it. We need a men's shelter, a day shelter. I know the Christchurch model. My son's been involved in the city mission there in Christchurch for over a decade, and I know the model there, and we've got to look at that and try and apply that and give the men a day shelter, a step towards normality in their lives, and women as well, women and children who are really struggling to find accommodation in this city of ours. We might have to be bold. We might have to open up the Brook camp. It's It's underutilised, it's costing us 300 to 400,000 a year. Costing the council the ratepayers. We might have to go old and open it up to emergency housing for women and children and make decisions like that and give this council a reputation of being concerned about everyone in our community that is struggling and needs a hand up. Not a handout, but a hand up. And we've got to be more socially minded, and we've got to lift that BB rating, because it isn't anything to be proud of. There were so many ahead of us when I had a look at it. So there's a lot of work to do there in the social responsibility area, and acknowledge the volunteers that work in this area too, and give them some encouragement as well, and even some financial support, because I think they're carrying the load at the moment, the volunteers in this area.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Fulton, then Councillor Laurie.
Okay, so as this is speaking to the Mayor's report, I'd like to start off by acknowledging your leadership, and I applaud you for finding the courage to be bold over the issue of climate change and for showing leadership in terms of that emergency declaration. I think that there was an opportunity to respond to the community, and it was very important to speak to the community that we have listened to them and that this is the time to take action. But that was a courageous thing for you as the Mayor to do in terms of taking that leadership and then securing funding to address it into the future. So for me, that's been a highlight of this term, and I think that as a result of that, what we're going to see is rapid action in all areas of council business. And I just wanted to touch briefly on the future access study, which I attended the workshops yesterday, and how there's some amazing lenses looking at how we look at transport into the future, look at public transport, active transport, congestion, single occupancy vehicles, our roading network. But the lens of decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions is key to that study as well. And so we need to ensure that is a lens which is part of that study. And I know that the Chief Executive is going to make sure that happens. But I'm really excited that because of this declaration and because we're going to have a climate champion into the future, that our operational, day-to-day operations will be using that lens in every way that we do business. So I also think that the declaration sent a really strong message of hope to our community, and we can't ignore that for the young people who are growing up right now, there is a lot of anxiety associated with the climate crisis and what the future means for them. I was talking to my daughter Maddie in London, who's in London at the moment, and she said she'd been to the climate strikes in London, and she said, "Mum, I didn't know that there's climate justice as well. I didn't understand that for minority people, the impact of climate change is so much more significant because they're more vulnerable. Their vulnerabilities become even more pronounced with the climate crisis." And so I think Nelson, as a community, we have been affected by climate change right now through our extreme weather events of floods and fires, but we also have an opportunity to show leadership and give hope to those where there might not be the leadership in other parts of the world. And that is how you change. That is how you change the world and the way the world operates. So for me, that's been an absolute highlight of this term, and I think that the hope that we're seeing in the community, that the council is on board and showing leadership over this issue is a wonderful thing. Like Mel, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on, which I guess I feel like we haven't progressed as quickly as I would have liked to have. One is the Brook Recreation Reserve. all of us in the room are aware of how long, that's been a long, long journey, and that we have an underutilised reserve up there. And as Mel said, it could be playing a role in addressing some of the issues we have around homelessness. I think there's other ways we can be looking at homelessness as well, and that supporting emergency and transition housing is a key part of council's duty into the future. So I hope that in the next term we can pick up on some of that, and we have some great community partnerships and working on providing sustainable housing into the future. The other things I wanted to touch on was that Councillor McGurk already mentioned it, the pest management plan, which was a massive chunk of work for myself, Councillor McGurk and Councillor Laurie. And when we went into that, there was quite a lot of resistance from our neighbours, particularly from the staff, in terms of getting the funding for eradication programs. So I want to thank Councillor McGurk and Councillor Laurie for supporting my ongoing request to make some of our pest eradication programs, and the success that we now have with that. So that is an amazing achievement, and I think we should be really proud that our plan is taking that stance. I think that's everything I wanted to touch on. Oh, finally, I just wanted to also mention the Te Hunanui Cycleway, because that's a piece of work which I initiated at the start of my first term. It was one of the first amendments I made to a recommendation to make the connection between Te Hunanui and Stoke, and it's really exciting to see that finally come to fruition and to see that network expanded and the opportunities for our Te Huna kids to hopefully cycle safely to school. So I think that's a really exciting piece of work.
Thank you. Good things take time sometimes. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking at that list up there, reading the added items in this report, listening to the chairs of the various committees, it is staggering the amount of work that the Nelson City Council does and how it touches on everyone's lives in so many different ways. And actually, one of the things I've learned is that it is very hard to get your head around just how big council is and how much of an influence council is on everyone in Nelson, unless you actually work here or you're privileged to sit at this table. And it's tough because we don't actually have enough tools really to do the job that we need to do, and that is because we are still only basically funded through a property tax, and actually it's not good enough. We need more resources to do our work. So I'm really hoping that in the next term of council across the country, the broken funding model that we work with becomes a much bigger issue that everyone is talking about, because unless we all start talking about it, nothing is going to change. And already the idea that is being put out there is that the government should be sharing some of the GST that they take from the regions is starting to pick up some momentum. So my challenge is to whoever is at this table next term, please keep pushing that. We have to change the model so that we can do the job that we're being asked to do. The current setup, it doesn't really work, and it makes us very unpopular with a lot of people that we actually want to, get on with. For me, a highlight of the last term was the dawn blessing for the launch of our wonderful Taurapa sculpture on the banks of the Maitai. I was really looking forward to it, so much so I went down a week early for the dawn blessing on my bicycle, and it was cold. I turned up a week later, there were people there, which was nice, including Maya Hegland, the artist, who's a really good guy, and he spoke beautifully at the ceremony, as did everyone. Historically, some Nelsonians have struggled with things Māori and public art. But the massive success of Taurapa and the way people have celebrated it, photographed it, taken videos of it, taken their whānau down to look at it multiple times, I think is something that we should all be really proud of. And we should all be really, really happy about. I think it shows a real step forward for Nelson, and that makes me really pleased. I also think the comms team, who often get a hard time around here, sometimes I think they're like the goalkeepers in a football team. They do not have an easy job. And they've had a particularly challenging time a number of times this term. But the comms team has made an excellent video celebrating Taurapa that was put together with help from Fraser Heal. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you have a look at it on the Council's Facebook page and share it, because it's telling a Nelson story. It's telling a really positive Nelson story that we want everyone to hear. I would also like to acknowledge you, Madam Mayor, for the efforts that you have made in the last term and the term before that to build a better relationship between iwi and Nelson City Council. I also want to acknowledge all the work that you've put into your te reo. I wish that I was as good as you are. I really think you've done very well. I'd also like to just leave you with this. I was having a chat, I was feeling very frustrated with the way council works and how slow things can be. And I was talking to a like-minded Wellington City Councillor on the phone a while ago. And he said, Matt, this is what you need to realise. Our job is to plant seeds that years from now, long after we've gone from council, will lead to wonderful things that other people will take credit for. And I hope that whoever is sitting around this table in the next term of council understands that, because it really helps when you can get your head around that. And thank you everyone for being part of this team. It's a funny word, team. You know, people say, you know, the council team, and it's not an easy team to be in, because we have different views of the world, and we're approached by people in the public who've got different views, and we bring those views to this table, and sometimes that brings us into conflict, and it isn't always pretty, but you know, we do the work we do. And I do know that everyone around this table is here because they love the city, and I love the city too. So thank you for being part of that with me for the last 3 years.
Kia ora, Matt. Councillor Delberg.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think the thing over the 3 years, you kind of realise the breadth and depth of the items we action, which Councillor Laurie just mentioned, and really that challenge between the governance role and the management, and when to fiddle and when not to. But I think the big thing we did there this year was the improvement in the council performance. In fact, we allocated some funding for staff numbers and the much needed extra general managers we need to get the work done. But for myself, I just thought two things that haven't been mentioned, and the amount of time that we get distracted by the City of Mendes bylaw. I was thinking Mr. Stanton on our main street. I'm not too sure if it's a tourism attraction, but it was very annoying and distracting. The City of Mendes bylaw we did extremely well, and I'm thinking the amount of negative time we spent on freedom camping and that bylaw, and the fact that no one even thought to mention in the 3 years is just how great it's been the last 2 years since we instigated those two bylaws. The other challenge I see at the moment is the roading and the future access. The length, I was there last night as well. I was interested in stage 4, and where we get some outcomes. Just happens to be August next year, smack in time for the central government election. So I got probably an apprehension that as we have these plans, we seem to change the name on them, then roll them for another 3 years, and then we get kind of distracted again, and I'm not too sure if we get an outcome. But the role of the council is to play the game, and someone else with the money, obviously central government, and the New Zealand Transport Authority get to actually say what happens. But that's a learning curve for us all. And probably the other one really is that the other challenge is not having access to all the information. I'm thinking of Stoke Plan. We get some people and we get some reports done, and 4 years later we're still not quite sure where we're going. I'm thinking the Haven precinct, 2 big delegations out of Auckland came and told us, and then we're still not quite sure what we're doing there. It's the challenge of actually the resource consents, the RMA and all that, that is a challenge for council, as well as how we administrate other people's consenting. People out there may not realise we have to do our own. That is one of the challenges I've sort of found. But overall, 3 years, very enjoyable, and I think some very good outcomes for the city. Thanks.
Yeah. Mr. Murray, would you like to say any words? You don't have to, but I just... Thank you. Tēnā koe, John.
Kia ora katoa. I wasn't prepared to say a few words this morning. I actually come from morning tea, which is running late, so I'll keep this rather brief. It's been a fantastic journey being the external appointee for the last 3 years and the previous term. It's the role where I would highly recommend to the new council to consider having on board, because I feel that the external appointees bring a dynamic to the council, skills and some resources which are needed to help council achieve its objectives. There has been some major achievements of council over the last 3 years and the term before, but the last 3 years. While we all sort of talk audit and risk and we all think, oh God, that's got to be so boring, it actually is the infrastructure within the organisation that provides the platform for everything else to occur. So when we talk about the AA rating, we do talk about rates and debt, but we also talk about financial systems, financial management, financial processes to make sure that we get through and we well manage our funds. Now sure, it hasn't been perfect, there's been a couple of speed bumps, but for 95% of the time, it's an amazing achievement, particularly as you try to get around the head of the size of council. $1.5 billion of assets is a lot of assets, and 120 million of revenue is a lot of revenue. It is a big organisation, and therefore you expect to have the right governance happening in those sectors. As Chairman of Forestry, it's been a fantastic story in forestry, and through Alec and the team on the Forestry Advisory Group, we've certainly turned the forestry from what used to be seen as a totally commercial venture into something that is more environmentally responsible, more recreational friendly, and a lot more considerate around what we're trying to achieve. I think for me the highlight was getting rid of 140 odd hectares of Douglas fir, which is just an absolute pest and menace in this region, and replacing that with some better stuff that we can move forward with. So look, I personally, and I suppose on behalf of the other external appointees, thank you. We've enjoyed our role with council, and I wish you all the best into the future, and I wish the new council well to steer our city into the future, to plant those seeds, Matt. That's exactly a really good analogy, to plant those seeds for 10 years, so that in 20 years' time we can all enjoy what we have now. So kia ora and thank you.
Kia ora, John, thank you very much, and thank you for actually what is a huge amount of work that you do. It goes well and truly beyond just what happens in the meetings. A lot of hours dedicated to supporting us, so thank you. Now, Cassie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to say, I guess a thank you on behalf of Youth Council. So I've been lucky enough to have been on for 3 years, so in a way I feel like I've kind of seen the whole term play out, which has been really interesting. It's amazing being able to have youth sit on this table, and I think it just helps add diversity, which we can't thank you enough. It's been amazing, and to see what you've achieved in 3 years is really inspiring. So yeah, thank you so much, and yeah.
See, look, actually the thanks is ours. The value that our youth councillors bring, I think we all know that it's invaluable. Really, really special, so thank you very much. It's a lot of hours to dedicate to come into committee meetings, council meetings, to look at our plans and our policies and our strategies, but you've just been absolutely fantastic, all of you. Hayley, do we want to put you on the spot?
This has been my first year on Nelson Youth Council, and it's been a lot. It's been a bit crazy, but I felt so welcomed, and the value of the information I've taken away from this is really, really amazing, and I'm able to help spread it through the other youth of Nelson. So once again, I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan?
Thank you. Look, I just wanted to say that as far as Youth Council, it sits in community services, so I keep a big interest in it, and I really love the input that the students come in with. But it's not just the meetings. They actually do a whole lot of things outside the meetings. They do a lot of projects, they volunteer for a whole lot of projects that are going on in the community, and they run events. So I just wanted to ask that is acknowledged in the minutes, that it's not just the meetings that they come to, they do a whole lot of things outside, and it would probably be worthwhile people looking at their minutes. And they run their meetings in a very professional and very respectful way.
Thank you, thank you. So I'll close off the Mayor's report. I just want to thank you all for absolutely fantastic last 3 years. This is the most amazing role. I thoroughly enjoy it. People ask me about it, they say, oh, you have to deal with all sorts of things and grumbles and groans and everything else, and you certainly work really hard on the role, but I enjoy probably 95% of what I do. 5% of it I tolerate, I'd have to say, but I cannot think of another role like it, and it is a role where you are, as elected members, connecting with all of your community, from your homeless, who we know by name, through to our business leaders, through to international visitors and ministers and prime ministers. So thank you so much for your support. I really thank you for your service to the people of Nelson over the last 3 years, your absolute dedication. It is so much more than just sitting in this room, and I've watched every single one of you out there really striving for your community and giving your knowledge and capability, supporting others when they've needed it, bringing forward brilliant, amazing ideas, sowing the seeds. It's been absolutely fantastic. And to the staff, we couldn't do anything here without you. So to Pat, to you and your team, again, I just want to really say to you, thank you. Serving in local government is about service. It actually is about service to humanity. You don't work in local government unless you have a deep ethic about servant leadership, and that comes through as very much the culture of this organisation, led by you, Pat. And thank you so much to all of the team. You are a joy to work with, and sometimes we might not be a joy to work with, but I think we get there in terms of the testing, and I think that's the wonderful thing. I really want to thank the councillors who acknowledge that it's so important to have a diversity of views, to be able to bring up the best advice and then test it in this room and add the layers and get to, perhaps a slightly different outcome than where we may have started. But I actually think that is the value of local government. It's actually that bringing together of exceptional management capability and knowledge, and then putting that together with the community lens that comes from the people sitting at this table. So thank you sincerely. To the community, I want to also thank the community of Nelson, of Whakatū, and actually the community of Te Taiihu. We are so much a community that stretches from east to west. We operate as Te Taiihu, top of the south, and I just want to thank our communities for being exceptional partners, because it is through partnership, it is through relationships that we deliver wellbeing for our communities. So kia ora tātou, anā mihi nui kia koutou, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora. I will move that we receive the Mayor's report, seconded by Councillor.
I am happy to second it, but are we going to put those additions in and how
Yes,
they're going to be recorded?
Robin's been noting them, so she'll add them through.
Thank you.
We won't try and do it in a resolution.
There's too many.
Seconded by Councillor Noonan.
Request that one more be added.
Very quickly,
Because I think that it's quite important to acknowledge that there was actually a memorandum of understanding between Hone Mahika. It wasn't the city amenity bylaw. We managed to reach a reconciliation. And
yes, I think that is very worthy of inclusion. Thank you.
And again, I'd like to thank the Mayor for showing empathy and compassion through that process.
Thank you, Councillor Fulton, and in responding to that, it's one thing we have missed. I want to thank you for your empathy, for your leadership in resolving what was one of Nelson's, at a very individual level, but with quite an impact, one of our most challenging issues to bring people together, to mediate a solution, and you did that behind the scenes. Lots of hours, lots of working through processes, and a huge amount of empathy. So a sincere thanks to you. We couldn't have done it without you. But to put the motion, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Now we're due to have morning tea, but what I'm going to suggest we do is just have a very quick 5-minute little break, literally 5 minutes if you need to stretch, and then we'll come back, and I think we will move into the next item on the agenda, which is where I'm going to hand over to Councillor Walker, and then we'll have morning tea after that. What do you think, Councillor Walker? Is that happy with that? Right, so a quick 5-minute stretch, and then we'll koutou, welcome back to the meeting. And we're moving through our agenda, and today we have the wonderful opportunity to acknowledge the service of Councillor Stuart Walker. So it's welcome to Sue and Stuart who have come to join me so we can say a few words. Stuart, I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you over the last 3 years. You are a person that never shies away from hard work, that has got an absolutely inquisitive brain, that is generous with sharing your knowledge. You have never left me in doubt with your role in terms of following up issues, and we have many issues in the works and infrastructure area, and you have been out there alongside people in the community. I really enjoyed, as much as the cyclones delivered us some immense challenges, I really enjoyed being alongside you out in the community, working with communities about how we were going to support them. You've got a real empathy for community issues, but you bring with that technical capability, and you can translate complex issues actually into a way that I can understand them when it comes to engineering related matters, and that is something, I have to say. There's not many people that can do that. So as I said at the start, thank you so much for your support of council activities. You have been with Stuart on many occasions, helping out, volunteering, making sure that we connected with a broad range of people in the community, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing Stuart with us. He's worked very, very long hours over the last 3 years, and Stuart, you can, I think, feel very proud of your contribution. If I could keep you, I'd keep you here, but whānau comes first, and we respect your decision and just thank you for your dedication to service of the people of Nelson. I have a few small gifts for you, or 2 small gifts for you. So I'd just like to present these to you. And so congratulations. Thank you for 3 years of absolutely outstanding service for the City of Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Stuart, for actually, this is also Stuart. We have a crest, the city crest for Stuart. We've had that engraved to acknowledge your service. They are given out very rarely. You have to either serve at this table or do exceptional community service to receive them, and you are absolutely deserving. Well done. Congratulations. And Sue, for you, just to brighten up, hopefully, brighten up your that's beautiful. Your world, we've just got some lovely flowers for you, so thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Councillor Walker, it is your opportunity to hold the floor.
Right. I'm not used to this. Apparently I'm expected to say a few words. So first up, welcome to my family. Sue, my brother Ian, sister Annette, and our daughter Natalie. Our son Matthew is at sea. He works for Tallies and he's at sea just at the moment, and unfortunately his wife Michelle can't be here today. Thanks to those of you who are in the gallery that have come. I think, yep, they're all my friends, so that's all good. And of course, thanks to those staff members who've, for some reason, left their desks. So, on a serious note for a start, I guess you're all expecting me to dwell on the last 36 months. Well, it's been a rather interesting time for me, and I have to say, quite an experience. I'm so glad that I have managed to survive pretty much intact. 3 years ago, I thought I was quite well prepared for what was to come. But nothing really prepares a new councillor for what you're confronted with. You soon learn what a mammoth task it is to run a city, and that you can't please everyone. You need to have an open mind, and I have to admit, I think at least on 2 or 3 occasions, I've changed my mind during debate. So, coming from a one-man business as an electrician, I was used to discussing with Sue what direction to take at various times as my business grew, so we'd decide what to do and then do it. It didn't take me long to realise that it doesn't quite work like that round here. The biggest battle for me has been the bureaucracy, but I'm a realist, and I accepted that at an early stage that here was a new set of rules that I had to work with. So it's really been a great exercise that I put my heart and soul into. And many late nights, and actually last night was 2 o'clock, to make sure that I was properly prepared for the unexpected role of Chair and Works and Infrastructure. As a first-time councillor, and only a few months into it, that's what happened. You have no idea, absolutely no idea, what I was going through at that first meeting I chaired. I was shitting myself. Fortunately, I had been well briefed by Robin and her team of governance advisors. They are all pure magic. And so I sorted out with them what I had to do if things turned to custard. And I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but that's what happened. And I adjourned the meeting. I sought advice from David Hammond, who was our acting CEO at the time, and he guided me through the issue of the proposed Tahuna Cycleway route, and I learned so much from that meeting. I have made so many friends in here, and for that, I thank you. So it's not only the fellow councillors, of course, but also the many staff who I worked with, both here and at Tasman District Council. It is such a shame that most of the general public have no idea what goes on inside this building and the hours that diligent councillors put into their respective jobs. I think that Ruth Kilman was a bit surprised when I requested to receive copies of agendas for all meetings, not just those committees that I was a member of. I needed to know what was going on in all areas that make our city tick. However, in all my time here, I have never ever actually caught who it was that was filling my blue bag all the time. So, I wish the new council really well. To my best recollection, and what I've thought about it, there could be maybe 6 or 7 new councillors. And for those existing councillors that are returned, you're going to have quite a job to bring the new folk up to speed. It is a mammoth task ahead of you. So, enough of the serious stuff. As I said, I've made many friends here and acquaintances who I have come across in my 3 years of duties as a councillor and chair. And I would now like to recognise some of you publicly for all the way that you have treated me and assisted me over this time. Of course, I can't acknowledge you all, but if you're a bit miffed at being missed out, well, it could be just an oversight, or there might be a reason. So now, because it's election time, I think you will all be getting used to a few porkies being told at the various functions. So from here on, I leave it to you to make your own judgment as to what I might say that could be a bit stretched, or what might be gospel, such as you might read in our newspapers. So, I have 17 trophies here.
17?
And they're all for various people, and they're all individually engraved with a message from me. You can leave them on the corner of your desk, or you can put them on the mantelpiece at home, or maybe even on your toilet cistern. No, maybe not the toilet cistern. So here we go, in no particular order. I have already given one to Robin Shearer. And for those who don't know, Robin is a TDC staff member who's the secretary of the Landfill Committee that I'm chair on, and the Sewerage Business Committee, which I'm, or business unit that I'm deputy chair. So I presented Robin with one of these unexpectedly at our last meeting the other day, and the tears welled up in her eyes, and it was really neat. So, first off, I'd like to start off with actually a serious one, and that's Paul Matheson, our Deputy Mayor. And I do hope you're watching, Paul. Paul rang me last night to wish me well for this moment, and he said some really nice words for Sue and I. But man, he is seriously unwell at the moment. He's got a major dose of flu, and I'm not sure that he even would be making the trip to Blenheim today that he intended to do. I could barely recognise his voice. So, please get better soon, Paul. Now, some of you may not know how I became Chair of Works and Infrastructure, but I suspect some of you knew before I did. So, at a committee meeting, and I'm not sure who was chair, but I was sitting in my usual spot over there, and I noticed Paul left his seat, which is over there by Tim and Gail, and he tootled off. And because I'm hard of hearing, I always have to concentrate quite heavily on what's going on. And I didn't notice, but there was a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and it was our Mayor, Rachel. And she said, can you come with me, please? Well, you don't argue with the Mayor. Well, not me anyway. And so I walked through to her office. Paul was there. And long story short, it was necessary for them to reduce the workload a bit on Paul, so they offered me Paul's job as Chair of Works and Infrastructure. So we swapped jobs. I was Deputy before, and then I became Chair. I said I was flattered by the faith that Paul and Rachel must have in me, but being a cautious type of bloke, I asked for the job description. And of course, there isn't one. And I think that should be rectified. So Paul said, Stuart, just wing it, you'll be fine. And so for 2.5 years, I've been winging it. And we've managed to spend quite a significant amount of money, which was all in the plan, but I've done my best. So, Paul, thank you so much for the assistance that you've freely given me. And at times I've had to seek advice from you. You've been great for me, Paul, and you've become a real friend. You've helped me immensely in the last 3 years, and particularly when I got quite despondent about 12 months into the job. Paul, you have given such sterling service to Nelson as a mayor and deputy mayor over many, many years. And actually, I do remain hopeful that we as a city can acknowledge this somehow in the future. I think we might have to ambush him, but, you know, that's that. So, thank you so much, Paul. And I'll be dropping off that one to Paul. So that's Paul's. Now, the list. Okay. If this works out okay, it'll be fine. If it doesn't, it'll also be fine. So this particular one, the inscription reads, "One of the few accountants who can explain things as they are, Andrew Bishop." Also, I might mention that if any of you want to nail me to the wall, this is going to be your opportunity. Unfortunately, this person isn't here at the moment, but I wanted to recognise this huge amount of work that this person has done over many, many years, because I think what I heard somewhere was that he actually joined the staff in 1986. So this one reads, "Thank you for greening our city over many years." And it's Andrew Petheram. Now, is Rosie here? Rosie, please accept this on Andrew's behalf. He never asked me if he could be away today. Thanks, Rosie. I never thought I'd be nervous. Okay. This one is for the guys downstairs who've kept my phone going. And I thought it would be quite straightforward, but my phone has for some reason at various times done stupid things. So I would see either Phil, Dion or Jeff. Is any of those here? Okay. Jane, would you like to come on their behalf and accept this? Those guys have been great for me. customer services. You are all magic in your dealing with the public. Thanks. So again, Jane, would you like to accept that on behalf of all the front counter staff? This one, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Who could that be? Landfill? Sewerage? In the very early days, this person was great, and I learnt so much from him. Johan. Oh, I found this in my blue bag this morning. Councillor Stuart Walker, to be opened at the meeting on the 26th of September. Every electrician carries a knife. Cheers to you. Could you read that out, Rachel?
Local Government New Zealand. Local Government New Zealand. The bearer of this voucher is entitled to 5 hours of approved psychiatric counselling to overcome the withdrawal symptoms of no longer being a Nelson City councillor. Who is that from, Stuart? Who is that from?
That's from the senior leadership team. Now, also in here,
It's quite a lot.
there's 5 personal cheques for $100. Now, I can't accept that. But look, thank you so much for your thoughts. Right. Now, that was a late item. And actually, there is some further writing here, but I can't really read it. I think it's been redacted. Okay. Governance advisors. You have all been so helpful for me. Where's Robin? Is Robin here? Ah, Robin. Your team are magic. Thank you so much. Here we go. This one says, thank you for organising ALEC, Gemma. I could have given flowers or a voucher, but this is more fun. This one says, sorry you couldn't get me on an electric bike. Mark Parfitt. This person isn't here, but what it says is, one of my highlights as Chair of Works and Infrastructure, Thank you for organising the sewer pipe sleeving visit, Lois Plum. So we'll get that one to Lois later as well. And I love her fingernails. This one, thank you for your guidance. Who would that be? Alec. We're on the home straight. Thank you for your support and encouragement. Rachel. Pat Doherty. Now look, this is something that I really didn't expect. But this one says, thank you for granting me free city parking for the next 10 years. Now, this one here is really important because it says, thank you for running the council. Think about it. Ruth Coleman. So Ruth was one of those that I first met on council officially when in the earlier days, 5-6 years ago, when I started making presentations to the council over a few things, solar water heating, Trafalgar Centre, Kerry. No, Rachel does a great job, PR. People that attend the public forums, Rachel's the one that guides these nervous people around. Ruth, and it's really, really great. So that's that. Now we're getting into the more serious stuff. This one is the Good Kiwi Bloke Award. So you have to be a Kiwi. But this person is someone who has welcomed me, who has always listened. I've always respected their point of view, whichever way it went, and has become quite a good friend. So, just to let you know that he is eligible for a Kiwi Bloke Award, this guy went through a citizenship ceremony recently. David Light. So, this is the Supreme Award, if you like. And this one is important. On the bottom of it, Councillor Stuart Walker Trophy, annually awarded to any member of the Works and Infrastructure team who has displayed commitment and intensity to their work benefiting Nelson. Candidates for this award to be drawn from the most senior to the most junior staff. The recipient is to be determined by the current chair of the Works and Infrastructure Committee and presented at the last Works and Infrastructure meeting of the year. That's the rules. So again, I repeat, annually awarded to any member of the NCC Works and Infrastructure team who has displayed commitment and intensity to the work for the benefit of Nelson. This person, like no other, knows Nelson's infrastructure inside out. The recipient for 2019 is Phil Ruffle. So, we're nearly there. So that's all the staff, and then what do I do with the councillors? And I realised here that I could possibly get into serious trouble. You see, I didn't go over budget, and I haven't followed the council procurement policy. I didn't get multiple quotes for these trophies, I just went in and ordered them. So, like other councillors, I'm really scared of what Steve Cross might say. But I thought my budget might stretch to one more councillors, another trophy, but what would it be? What about always the first to ask questions award? And then I realised that it might not be fair to single out Matt Laurie. So we scrubbed that idea. Then, what about late for meetings award? Then I realised that I probably would need two of them. So when I went back to the nameplate engravers, unfortunately I found that they couldn't get any in green colour. So I had to flag that one too. So, to be fair, there are no councillors' trophies, sorry. Like Pat, I'm very risk averse. So, to all you councillors, you've been great to work alongside. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And a word of warning for new councillors that will be elected. Don't go shopping with Jane McLeod. Jane successfully lightened my wallet by many hundreds of dollars at the beginning of the triennium. New phone, laptop, printer, and all the other bits and pieces. And so regardless of what colour hair Jane might have in a few weeks' time, don't go shopping with Jane. So, 16 days to go. That's me. Come on, Sue, we're out of here.
I think this deserves a waiata, so I'll ask Te Aroha. Te Aroha, Te Whakapono, Me Te rangi mari e tato e. Well done. Congratulations. Stuart. Stuart, thank you so much. Well, I said I'd let Stuart have the floor. Boy, I didn't quite know what we were getting ourselves into, but that is just absolutely magic. Stuart, thank you so much. It's a wonderful valedictory. Thank you for acknowledging so many of the people that just make this a wonderful organisation, and for your absolute generosity of spirit, your sense of humour, your hard work, and just being actually a fantastic person to have in the organisation. And again, we wish you and Sue all the best for your, well, I'm not sure whether it's going to be a retirement, because I suspect we'll find you in another role fairly soon, Stuart.
Well, I have a funny feeling, and I just sort of think that it might not be the last time I'm presenting in this room.
Thank you, Kia ora. Oh, councillors, that brings us really near to the end of our meeting today, and end of our term. We, obviously I said at our last meeting, that we will continue with the process of, if we are, obviously it is up to the people of Nelson as to whether we are given their grace to come back and sit at this table. If anyone is, we'll see how it goes, and all sorts of things call elections. I extend the warmth of the local government whānau to everyone, and would say to you that if you find that you are not sitting at this table, you are welcome always in this building, and you are welcome to come back and present your valedictory speech so that we can acknowledge your service. We will be doing that, whoever is here, and because it is so important. It is really sitting at this table, for those of us who have been privileged to be here, you can't do it unless you understand the ethic of service. It's fundamental to what we do. It's not a role that you take on lightly, and as Stuart said, for all new councillors, when they come into the building and we start the induction process, you think you know an awful lot about local government until you have to sit at this table. And it is a place where I've watched every single one of you grow as individuals, as community leaders. And again, I just want to close by thanking you all so sincerely for the commitment and contribution that you have made. It does make a difference to community. So we'll close the meeting and invite you. Oh, Patrick. Sorry. Oh, good grief.
Confirming the minutes.
You really? Item 9 is the minutes. Right, can we do that here, can we, in public? No, we actually have to go into public. Oh, we're actually going to have to go into public. We're going to be literally 1 or 2 minutes, because we're going to have morning tea afterwards. So we'll be... So you can pop into Ruma Marama, and we will come back to...
do you want me to move?
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Noonan, seconded by myself. Where are we going? Oh, Muriel. Oh, these jolly minutes. Yeah. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right. Just confirming. Okay. Can you just take us off live stream? Thank you.